What happened to this girl is terrifying, right? A girl called Carol was in doing her shopping, and she was in a shopping centre when she was approached by a police officer. Now, the police officer, he was in uniform, he was in everything, right? And he comes up to her basically saying, someone tried to break into your car and you're going to need to come with me to the police station. Now, she's thinking in her head, like, really? Like, she's thinking, this is a bit odd. Like, she wants some sort of proof that he's a police officer. He's like, I'm Officer Roseland, like, here's my badge. And she's like, right, fair enough, he has a badge, do you know what I mean? So he's like, follow me out to the parking lot and I'll take you to the police station. So she's following him out, and she sees his car is a Volkswagen. Doesn't really look like a police car, and also it doesn't have any sirens or anything on it. So she's obviously a bit like, this is a bit odd, but she's like, he does have a badge and everything, so he's obviously a police officer. She gets in the car and they're on the way to the police station. When she starts to notice, like, this doesn't really look like we're going to the police station. So I think, like, she's kicking up a bit of a fuss, like she's in a panic. To which a struggle then ensues in this car, and he tries to handcuff her, right? And the handcuffs slip. And thank God for that, right? They slip. So she literally opens up the moving car, like opens the door, jumps out and starts flagging down cars beside her. Now the reason why this is so scary is because in a lineup, like I think a year later, she picks him out only to find that man is Ted Bundy. She was in Ted Bundy's car. And she escaped. But the same day that he kidnapped her and she escaped, he actually went and kidnapped somebody else, and he did them. And like, she just had such a close call and a lucky escape. And she would end up testifying and stuff against him and helping get him put to jail. Like, think of the many people that have encountered serial killers and not even realised that they are this notorious killer. Terrifying.
He would love to tell her that she didn't have to do that. Let your skin heal. I'm so sorry, Caroline. But if he did that, if he made an exception for her and said, don't follow this process anymore, people would find out, and it would totally undermine his credibility. His whole thing is he's like, everyone must follow this process to stop the spread of germs and stop the spread of illnesses. Everybody's got to do this. And so if he didn't make her, what does that say about him? And so as he's sitting there watching Caroline dutifully get ready for surgery, Dr. Halstead, for the first time, really began seriously considering if there was any way, any sort of workaround that maybe could lessen the pain for Caroline. Just because he loved her. That was it. It wasn't a safety thing. It was just because he loved Caroline. But despite putting some real thought and energy into trying to come up with something to lessen the burden on Caroline, he just couldn't find a solution. All his solutions involved her not following the process, which he couldn't do. Fast forward to early 1890. So about a year after Dr. Halstead first really began considering how can he help Caroline not hurt her hands anymore. So about a year after that began to be a thing for him, and he's in his office, and he's looking at his desk, and on his desk is this small package. And he hasn't opened it yet, but he's so excited. He's also kind of nervous, but he feels like this is it. This is the thing I've been waiting for. So over the past year, Dr. Halstead had continued to iterate on how can I help Caroline? How can I keep her from hurting herself? And eventually he had this huge epiphany. He came up with this sort of outside-the-box concept, and he pitched it to a company and said, hey, can you help me make these? And now, sitting in front of him on the desk, was effectively the prototype of this strange thing he had come up with, which again was just to help his love, Caroline. And so, Dr. Halstead took a deep breath, he walked over, and he ripped open the package, and inside were these two strange-looking objects. And he picked them up, and without any hesitation, Dr. Halstead took the two objects, he left his office, hustled down the hallway to the OR prep room, where he finds Caroline. And she's getting ready to wash her hands, for an upcoming surgery. And he stops her and says, here. And he hands her the two objects. And he says, don't wash your hands. Just use these. And with a confused look, with her bloody and blistered hands, she took the two objects and said, okay. 1 week later, and already Caroline's hands and forearms were healing up beautifully. And also, Dr. Halstead, over the course of this week, was so excited about his prototype and the progress that he was clearly seeing in Caroline's skin condition that he finally worked up the nerve to tell Caroline how much he loved her. And Caroline would actually tell him that, believe it or not, I'm in love with you too. And before long, Dr. Halstead proposed to Caroline, and they got married. However, it was not their love that sort of was remembered for generations to come. Instead, the only reason we know about these two is because of that prototype that Dr. Halstead came up with, what he gave to Caroline that ultimately saved her skin. It was the perfect workaround to his hygiene hand-washing process. In fact, these objects that he created were so effective that he and everybody else, basically in medicine across the world, began to use these brand new tools. And so it is almost entirely because of one man's love for a woman that we now have arguably the most used medical tool in the world. Dr. Halstead inadvertently created the world's first ever rubber surgical gloves.
Y'all ready for another spooky personal experience? Y'all bear with me. My allergies are trying to kick in. It's messing with my throat, so bear with me, y'all. This is a story that is set in the Appalachian region, but not in the Appalachian Mountains. And unlike my other stories, this is a story that is set way back when I was a baby. This is actually a story that my mother told me. I know at least 2 times in my life she told me this story, and it was always the same details. She told me when I was about 10 or 12, when I started getting into, like ghost tales and stuff. And then she turned around and told me again when I was in my 20s, and her story never changed. And I would love for her to be able to tell the story herself, but unfortunately she passed away in 2020. So I'm going to tell it the way that I remember she told it. Okay. Now, this story takes place in Dalton, Georgia. And I'm pretty sure she told me they were renting a house. I don't think it was an apartment, based on details alone. Okay. My dad worked 3rd shift. So my mom was at home a lot by herself with me. I don't even think they had animals at the time. But she said Dad was at work, 3rd shift, his usual shift. And the house they lived in, when you walked through the front door, kitchen was right here on the right side. And then left side was the living room. And then where the living room was, there was a hallway that went down. Their bedroom on one side, my bedroom and bathroom on the other. It was very small. And she had a chair set up in the living room that faced down the hallway. So in case she heard me cry, she could get to me faster, a beeline. And she chose this night of the story to read the Bible. And said she didn't have no TV on, no radio, no nothing. She just wanted to read the Bible quietly. So she picked up the Bible, started reading. She said she'd been reading she said 30 minutes, maybe. And all of a sudden she started getting this really creepy, eerie feeling of a dark presence coming down the hallway. So she looked, didn't see nothing, so she just kept reading. And she said as she kept reading, it got stronger. So she kept reading the Bible and just kept reading. And she got to the point where she started reading it out loud. And she said the feeling stopped. She's like, okay, so it stopped. So she led down the hallway. This time when she led down the hallway, she saw a dark figure standing in the hallway looking into my room. Now, I would love to say my mother said she was paralyzed with fear, and no. My mother told me her exact words was, I got my butt up and ran straight to your room and didn't think twice about it. You know where I get my one part brave and one part dumb from. But anyways, she ran in there. She looked in the bed, checked on me. I was fine. So she looked back. What? No figure. It was gone. Okay. But the feeling of something dark came back as she was looking at the door. So she went back to check on me in the bed and tucked me in and all that. And she said out of the corner of her eye, she said something caught her attention. And this is when she said she froze up. She said she could feel the hair on her neck, on her arms. She said every hair on her body just stood up. And she goes, I don't know how long I stood there. She says, but I could feel myself shaking. She said her heart was racing. She said, so she picked me up and she wrapped me in the blanket that was in the bed that was covering me and just held me to her chest. And she said she didn't want to turn around. She goes, I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to turn around. She goes, because I know what I saw out of the corner of my eye. She goes, I was afraid that when I turn around, it's still going to be there. She goes, and I'm going to have to build up some courage. She goes, and I didn't know if I had enough. She said, so I started praying in my head. Lord, give me strength. Lord, give me strength. So when she picked me up and she turned around, she said it was still there. Now, before I tell you what was in the window, let me tell you this part. The house that they were renting wasn't really, I don't know if it might be built on stilts. I guess you could call it that. She said, but the house was kind of high off the ground. So the window was high off the ground. She said when she turned around, there was a man in my window looking into my room. She said he was in completely dark clothing, had dark hair, and she said he just had this like soulless, dead look. Like, she said, and that's all he did. He just stared, plainly stared into the window. Didn't move, didn't nothing. She said she stood there staring at him. She didn't know how long she stood there staring. She said it felt like an eternity. She was sitting there staring at him. She said, I wanted to run, but I couldn't. She said, so all I knew, she said, and I told her, I remember her telling me this part, and I was like, how did you do that, Mom? How? I mean, physically, how did you do this? She said she had me in her chest with one arm, and she had to reach up and pull the blind down while staring at this guy in the face. And I could see the terror on her face. She said she closed the blind, and he never moved the entire time either. She said once she finally closed the blind, she ran back out of the room and stayed in the living room, shut all the doors in the house, bedroom doors, bathroom doors. She said she literally just sheltered and locked herself in the house. She said doors were already locked, windows were closed, everything. She created like this, almost like a tomb. She said she just sat in the living room until my dad came in at 7 o'clock the next morning. She said me and her slept on that couch and never moved. She said, and luckily for me, I slept the entire time. Thank God. But, and she said she never found out if it was a real man because nobody had ever reported or caught anybody peeking in windows. She don't know if it was a demonic spirit, if it was the same one that was in the hallway that transferred outside the window. She's not sure. So she said it never came back. Whatever it was, it never came back. And not to mention they moved out of that place a little bit over a month ago too. So, but she, like I said, told me that story again when I was in my 20s, and it never changed. So I believe my mother, because my mother is not one of those that used to tell tall tales and would emphasize stories and stuff. She didn't do that. She had a problem believing in the supernatural anyways. The only way she believed in the supernatural is if she physically saw it for herself. That's the only way she believed in it. You know, and if she heard people's tales, she's like, yeah, but if they didn't see it, I don't believe it. That's what kind of person she was. So I don't doubt this story is true. So that is one of those absolutely terrifying experiences from my childhood. Not in the Appalachian Mountains, but still considered Appalachian region. That's how far my stories go back. Come back tomorrow, I will have another one for y'all. Y'all have a great day.
Let's read a scary story that was DM'd to me. This one is actually really scary, and I think you're going to really like this one. And it's pretty long, so buckle up. I used to live in a small town in Texas. My parents still live there today, and so does my brother and his wife. But I just can't go back because of what happened this night. I don't know if it has anything to do with what I experienced, but I had lost a brother years before this, and I saw him the night he died after begging to see him one more time because I felt like I would die if I didn't. I now wonder if I somehow unknowingly opened a door that I should have left closed. Anyway, there's this little man-made old graveyard in the town I had been investigating for years just for fun. I'm not a pro or anything, but I've done enough of these at this graveyard and other places, and I don't scare easily. Usually, it's just quiet nights and cold spots. Maybe a glimpse of something, nothing crazy. The place isn't big, only a few graves and some trees scattered around. No fence, it's pretty open and surrounded by bushes and trees and just empty fields, and 2 little houses in the back that belong to the family that take care of the graveyard. I've been there a bunch, both day and night. Like I said, I had been coming to this graveyard for years, and I knew every headstone by heart. That night, I had been out there for a while already, a good 30 minutes, maybe longer. Everything was calm, nothing weird, although to be honest, from the time I got there, something just didn't feel right, but I ignored it and continued my investigation. I was walking through towards the back, towards the houses again, when I noticed her standing near one of the trees. It threw me off because I hadn't seen her before, and I would have noticed someone else walking around. It's open enough that you can see the whole place from pretty much anywhere, but she was just suddenly there, like she popped up out of nowhere. And the air, I don't really know how to describe it, but it changed. It no longer felt safe. The slight breeze that had been happening that night stopped, like the wind itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen. She had on blue jeans and a blue hoodie. One of the few houses around had a light on outside, and it was hitting her from behind, so she was outlined in light, but her front was dark. I couldn't see her face at all. I remember feeling ridiculous because I immediately felt afraid, because I noticed that suddenly everything had gone quiet, and even the crickets that had been chirping earlier went quiet. Mind you, I had been investigating haunted places by myself and with others for years, and I had never been this afraid. Unfortunately, by this time, I had a lot happening in my life, and I haven't ever been this afraid. It was like a primal, instinctual fear. But something about her just felt off. But where I come from, when you show up to investigate somewhere and someone else is already there, it's just common courtesy to say hi. Let them know you're around so you don't mess with their investigation or accidentally scare them. So I did. I put my feelings aside, convinced myself I was being ridiculous, and decided to talk to her. I said, hey, but I didn't get a response, so I tried again. I said, hey, sorry if I distracted you. I didn't know anyone else was here. Do you live in this small town? Which I knew she didn't because it's a small town. Even if you don't know everyone personally, you get used to seeing people around, and you know when you see someone if they live there or not. But I was just trying to get her to talk to me. And I kept talking to her, trying to be polite. I don't even remember what I was saying, I just remember her silence. Still nothing. No sound, no movement, just standing there. So I started walking a little bit backward the way I had come. I have never felt that fear and unease. I realized that the way that she was holding herself didn't seem normal. Don't get me wrong, she was standing there like a normal person, but she was tense, unlike the way most people stand relaxed. It was like she was getting ready to lunge at me, and that's when she took one slow step toward me. My gut immediately went cold, like my brain hadn't caught up yet, but something in me knew it was off. I took an immediate step back, and for a couple seconds we both just stood there. Until it happened again. She stepped forward and I stepped back, and the only way I can describe it is the feeling of being prey. I shined my flashlight at her and finally saw her face, or where her face should have been, and there was nothing. Just smooth skin, completely blank, with like places where eyes and a nose and a mouth should have been but weren't. Just smooth skin. And then she started moving fast, like running straight at me, and I took off. I've never run that fast in my life. I could hear her footsteps behind me getting closer every time I looked back until I got to my house. I also want to mention this is a man-made graveyard. It's not smooth. It's very uneven and not uncommon to trip a lot there, and that's what I was doing, but I never heard this lady trip once. I reached my porch and turned around, and she was gone. Just the trees, the neighbors' houses, and the empty streets. But the stillness and quiet was still there. I stood there shaking, trying to breathe, because I've been doing this kind of thing for years and nothing has ever scared me like that woman did. I went back the next morning in the daylight. Everything looked normal again, but it didn't feel right. The air felt heavier, just like the night before. I haven't gone back since that day. I moved away a few months later, and I don't go ghost hunting anymore. So this person wants to be anonymous, but this did happen in a small town in Texas. I'm not going to say where, but I live in a small town in Texas. So this just hit home for me, y'all. Once again, I am home alone and super creeped out. I don't know why I do this to myself.
Can we show them the older homestead?
Yeah, let's go.
As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
It went to both.
Yeah.
Stop scrolling so I can tell you a scary story. Stop scrolling, okay? You here? Are you here? Okay. All right. Let's get into it. Let me tell you about the house I grew up in, okay? It wasn't just haunted. It was wrong. Now, once we moved in, things started off very small, like the TVs turning on and off, lights flickering on and off, okay? And this was a very old house. We would hear footsteps in the hall at night when there was literally nobody there. Beds were sinking, and sinking as in like someone, you know, like when you sit on a bed and the bed sinks, like that kind of sinking, except obviously no one was fucking there. But the house wasn't just haunted. This is gonna sound crazy, but it was alive, okay? And it wanted my mom. She was one that was very receptive to it. She was very into the paranormal. She was into ghosts. She was into that shit. And maybe that's why it targeted her first. I don't know. At first it was very mild, like I said, but then it got violent. And it was kind of fucking scary. She'd wake up choking, gasping for air, okay? As if someone was strangling her and then let go. No one was in the room, okay? It was just me and my mom at this point. She would tell me that she saw this girl, and it was a little girl, blonde hair, in a white nightgown, and she would be running up and down the hall. Like I just said, footsteps running up and down the hall, okay? It was the little girl. So I thought. My mom chased after her thinking it was me, okay? Again, it was me and my mom. She walked into my room and I was sound asleep. Then came the Ouija board. And as y'all know, you don't fuck with the Ouija board. You don't fuck with it. My mom bought this old Ouija board off of eBay, okay? And when I say old, I mean this thing looked like it was the first Ouija board ever fucking made, okay? From the moment that thing was brought into the house, shit just changed, okay? The energy shifted. And the energy was already off, but it shifted so bad. This is when the crazier shit started happening. And my mom became obsessed with it. And I mean, she would use it every single day, obsessed with it. And she carried that thing everywhere with her, okay? I'm talking to the bathroom, to the kitchen, to the living room, to her car. And she just kept saying it was calling to her. And it was calling her mama. And I don't like it. I don't like it. And then this is where shit hits the fucking fan, okay? We started hearing scratching on the walls. As if it was kind of like something alive was in the wall and was trying to get out, okay? And obviously at first we're like, okay, maybe there's squirrels in there, maybe there's rodents in there, maybe we got mice, you know? Spoiler alert, we don't. And doors didn't just slam, okay? They would rattle. They would rattle violently, as if someone was trying to break through. There were also times we would hear things breaking from the kitchen, and of course we'd run down there and there was nothing broken. Like there was nothing. Nothing fell, literally nothing. Now one night, I woke up to my door opening. Not only was my door opening, but it was creaking, okay? And it was creaking back and forth, okay? My door was moving back and forth very slowly, just like this. I finally just yelled for it to stop, okay? I said, stop it, stop it. I was freaking out, okay? I was a little kid. I didn't know what the fuck this shit was at the time. Because I had to speak my piece, then it came for me. At this age, I didn't believe in any of this, okay? I didn't want to. But one fateful night, when everyone was upstairs, I wanted some orange juice, okay? So I went down to the kitchen. I passed the hallway, the same hallway that my mom saw that little girl in the white dress with blonde hair in. And that hallway always felt wrong. That hallway would make the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That hallway, you know, like those memes and TikTok videos where people are like, oh, when you have to go downstairs for a drink and it's dark and you have to turn the lights on and you run the fuck upstairs. Like, that was literally how I got through the hallway. I would run. It always just felt like something was staring at you or stalking you, which is a better term to say because quite literally we were being stalked by this little ghosty ghost, okay? I finally make it to the kitchen and I make it to the counter. I poured my drink and then We used to have these bead curtains over our sliding door that was there, you know, like the beads you walk through. I don't know if they still make them nowadays. That shit just started swinging violently, okay? As if something has punched it, okay? And I don't know about y'all, but growing up and still to this day, I punch my shower curtain, okay? My shower is when I vent, okay? You know, like when you punch a shower curtain, and if you don't, trust me, I am mentally stable occasionally. But it was like that, as if someone punched the fucking beads, okay? And of course, as a kid, I froze. And I just felt like something was behind me, okay? And in the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow fly by, okay? I know I wasn't crazy. I know what the fuck I saw, okay? So I took off, okay? I didn't run. I bolted to my room. Things only got worse. One night, my mom heard loud ass banging, okay? I heard it too. It literally sounded like someone was taking a hammer to the walls, okay? But the next morning, my mom didn't just hear banging. No, okay? She heard scraping, as if someone above her, like, you know, someone on the next level, was dragging a chair across the floor. And that same night, I was going to the bathroom late at night. I woke up, I had to pee, okay? I wake up, it's probably middle of the night, probably 3 o'clock, you know, and I turn the light off in the bathroom, and I go to walk out the door, and bitch, I saw a shadow, okay? And it was a perfect shadow of a person. All black figure, no face, okay? Just the outline. I'm talking Shaquille O'Neal tall, okay? I mean, you could stack my body 5 times and that still wasn't tall enough. And I ran to my mom's room and I told her, and the very next morning, she called a priest. He told us to cut the Ouija board into 7 pieces and burn it as far away as we could from the house. So we drove to a park, I think about 2 hours away, okay? 2 hours. We drove 2 hours to burn this shit. Embers rose into the air. It was almost like it was fucking snowing. For a place that doesn't snow, the Ouija board was our snow. To be completely honest, after that, the activity did die down. We still never felt safe. No. And I think we were so traumatized by that, we still heard and felt things, but it wasn't, I'm not gonna say it wasn't bad. It wasn't as bad. And about 1.5 years after, we actually moved, okay? And we moved to another house that is currently haunted, you know? Not sinisterly haunted, is that a word? If not, I just made it up, you're welcome. Okay, this one's fine, okay? It's like friendly ghosts, friendly spirits, and it is what it is, and it's rare that something actually happens. Even to this day, I mean, this happened about 25 years ago, okay? Even to this day, I think about it and chills run down my spine. And sometimes I just wonder, like, was it haunted? Like, was our house haunted? Or was it just something very sinister that wanted to take control? You know what I mean? Probably not, whatever. Have you guys ever experienced something like this? And if so, please drop it down below because I love reading these. And this is actually a story from one of my followers, so shout out to you, boo. She did not want to share it, but she did feel comfortable enough sharing it with me, and I absolutely adore that. So if you guys have a paranormal experience that you don't want to share, but you want me to share it, just send me a message, and I got you, okay? I said it once, and I'll say it again. Stop fucking with Ouija boards! And there's people like, well, I messed with them and nothing happened. Well, hooty hoo for you, boo. Must be nice. Hell no. Hell no. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I love you, and yeah. Let me know what you want to see next. Love you.
Let's read another scary story that was DM'd to me. So one day, I was 15, I came back home from school and entered my house. It was quiet, so I assumed no one was home. So I went upstairs, got in my bed, and started watching some YouTube videos when I heard the front door opening and slamming shut. I assumed it was just my mom who had another bad day at work, so I got up, opened my door, and surprisingly, my backpack was still right on the door. So if someone were to open the door, my backpack would be on the ground, but it wasn't. I didn't think much of it, and just as I took a few steps back, still focused on my phone, I heard my mom calling my name, so I replied, but she wasn't answering me. I got a really bad feeling in my gut, and my mind just started screaming at me to go back in my room and lock the door. I ran back to my room and locked it. I sat on my bed hoping that my mom would come upstairs and knock on my door, but that never happened. An hour or so later, I heard the front door open and close. I unlocked my door and peeked out, and there was my mom standing there taking off her shoes. I ran to her and explained everything. She ignored me, thinking I was pranking her, but I didn't back off. I kept telling her someone is in our house because I didn't hear them leave. She gave in and called the cops. The cops came and they searched the whole house, not a trace of someone. No one had ever come home before my mom. My mom thought I was lying and apologized to the cops, but I know what I heard that day, and I don't think I can ever forget that. That is terrifying. And me personally, I feel like that sounds more like paranormal, and I would be scared shitless if that were to ever happen to me, and I would be really upset if nobody believed me as well. Thank you for sending me your story. If anybody wants to send me their scary stories, my DMs are open.
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen.
Did the window
Sean.
break?